By providing space for constant evolution, we can all transform how we view ourselves and the world around us.
Well, hello, Earthlings. How nice to see you all. I like that term. I suggest you use it all the time. It's very nice. I want to talk to you today about the night sky. So in my job as an astronomer working for NASA, I get to spend a lot of my time under the night sky, the true dark night sky, much as in that picture right there. And this is something that humanity has always been very connected with the night sky. But that connection is growing weaker with time. So I want to take you through a little history of humanity's view of the night sky and show you where there is this disconnection beginning and talk about how we can help change that. So the night sky has always been thought to be a mystical place, a magical place. Stars are moving, planets are moving, things are going on up there in the night sky, but we have no control over that. We can't stop the stars from moving around. So we would like to know what's going on with the night sky. So here's an early attempt to try to describe what's going on with the night sky. You send a traveler on a long, long journey. They get to the end of the firmament, whatever that means. And when they get there, they stick their head through the tarp of the night sky. And in the back, they see gears and cogs and wheels, the mechanisms that move all of the objects in the night sky around the Earth. Well, this isn't really true, so don't believe it. But this is one idea that people tried to figure out what's going on with the night sky. We also have had a large connection to the night sky using it as a metric of time. Long before cell phones, calendars, wristwatches, people needed to know things about time. They wanted to know, when can I harvest? When should I plant? When should I move my livestock to a different field because cold weather is coming? And in this famous example here, we see that the brightest star in the sky, the star Sirius, when the ancient Egyptians saw this star, the dog star, rising early in the morning in the month of August, they knew that meant that the gods would soon be sending rains and the Nile River would flood. These are the famous dog days of summer. Now, another way that people have tried to deal with the night sky and maybe make it more approachable or maybe make it not so mysterious is we make it the home for the gods. We put the gods in the night sky. They can look down upon us, mere mortals. They can help us. They can do things that we're not always sure are helping us, but we can be convinced maybe they're helping us. And those measures that the gods do up there are things that allow us some comfort to explain unexplained phenomena. For example, here we see the god Zeus throwing lightning bolts down. So maybe this is how lightning really happens. So we can just attribute it to a god and not be so scared of it. We also see God here in the firmament of heaven. And there's been many times when people have written about the stars being just lights shining through from heaven. So one of the ways we tried to get around it. But all of these ways kept us in this view that the earth is somehow a special place. The earth is the center of everything. All objects orbit around the earth, and the earth is this special central place. And this view has lasted for a long time in the history of humanity. The famous example where this was first sort of written down was in 150 AD from Ptolemy. But that purview and that idea, that paradigm, was with us for thousands of years. We didn't know any different, and it was the things we believed. So starting in the 1500s, there was a new idea, and this idea was based on science. It was based on observations of planets, observations of stars, and it involved mathematics. So science and mathematics were brought into the view, and it was very clear from those that the Earth was not the center. The sun, in fact, was the center of our solar system. The planets orbit around the sun, and the stars were far distant bodies that the Earth had no control over whatsoever. And this model was against the paradigm, against the thinking of the time, and in fact was not fully accepted by all the scientists for another 300 years after that. Mostly today, all scientists believe this, that the sun is the center of our solar system, but we still do have some skeptics out there that can quote, non-scientific measures to show us that we're wrong. Now, making observations of the night sky, while great scientifically, was not always great for your career. A famous example was Galileo. Galileo was the first person to truly experiment with astronomical observations using a telescope. And he also did more than that. He wrote down these observations in logbooks, and he wrote them down in books that he published. And so in these books, Galileo talked about sunspots changing their shape on the surface of the sun. He talked about moon craters making shadows in different phases of the moon, which proved that the moon's craters had raised edges. They had mountain ranges on the moon. He looked at the satellites of Jupiter and showed that they orbited the planet Jupiter, not the Earth. So these were great scientific observations, but they weren't things that were sort of believed at the time and caused Galileo to get into some trouble because he published these for the general populace to read, and they were against the beliefs of the time. Things moving in the sky have always had a bad effect on people. They're scary. Comets, for example, objects that appear from apparently nowhere, grow these large tails. Some famous comets have had tails that stretch across the entire night sky. And the belief is that these tails are nothing but particles of disease that are going to fall into the Earth's atmosphere and bring pestilence to us and disaster. And this view of comets is still with us today. There are New York Times articles from the early 1900s about the passage of Comet Halley that tell you to run inside as the comet passes overhead, which makes no sense whatsoever. And they talk about how the diseases you will get from this. In this famous drawing here, there's a person warning an astronomer, oh no, a comet's coming. And a famous woodcut, so famous and so prevalent, it was even done in color in the time period of the 1400s, a color print. So these were made by people individually coloring every one of these prints. That in the year 1450, 2 comets appeared simultaneously in the sky. So if one comet is bad, 2 must be really awful. And these 2 comets were so awful that blood rained down from the sky and infants dropped dead in the fields. This was the woodcut made, I should say, 70 years after the true event. So, of course, it was made completely from fantasy. But comets really have a bad rap. Many of you know there's a great comet that appears right now. It's not very bright. You've maybe heard of it called the Green Comet. I urge you to look at it. It's up every night, and part of your night sky homework you're going to have to do that. So people have noticed patterns in the sky for a long time. In South America, patterns in the night sky are often using the dark regions of the night sky to make shapes of animals or mythical beings. In the Northern Hemisphere, many of us are influenced by Greek and Roman mythology, and we know the standard constellations that we probably learned in camp over the summer or in some astronomy class. Things that show mythical creatures in the sky, such as Orion or a flying animal, flying horse, things like that. And humans are very good at patterns. We can connect the dots between bright stars and make them into patterns. In fact, we can do it right now. If you look at this pattern here, I notice it looks like a very nice face. You see the 2 eyes and the nose, and we can call this person Ted. There you go. So there's patterns. We're very good at patterns. Right? So in patterns, though, there are special patterns that even appear within patterns. Many of you might be familiar with the 12 famous constellations of the zodiac. These are the constellations where all of the planets and the sun and the moon move through in the sky. They never leave these 12 constellations. And so these constellations have had a special concern for people called the zodiac. Now, scientists know what this means is that our solar system is very planar. All the planets orbit basically in one plane. The pseudoscience of astrology believes that you can use these constellations and the locations of stars and certain dates to tell you about when your country should invade another country, when you should feel lucky and buy a lottery ticket, things like that. Now, you might not know there's actually 13 zodiac constellations. The 13th was removed a few hundred years ago because 13 was an unlucky number. 12 was very nice. We had 12 months of the year. we need 12 constellations in the zodiac. So if any of you were born in a 3-day range in the month of December, such as me, you don't have a zodiac sign. How have you ever lived your life? It's just been crazy. All right, so now we're going to talk about where sort of a disconnection with the night sky began. The night sky was viewed in all these previous things by going out and looking and seeing the grandeur of it, the largeness of it. And now the night sky shows up here in drawings made through an eyepiece of a relatively large telescope. These are drawings now that I can look at in the daytime. I can show them to my colleagues, so I don't have to be out in the night sky to see this. So the disconnection here of looking at the night sky and looking at drawings. And this even was emphasized further when photographic materials began to be used with telescopes. Here's some early photographs in the early 1900s of a colliding pair of galaxies and the planet Mars. And these photographs now could be copied, they could be printed in magazines, they could be printed in newspapers, they could be shared around the world. So we're now looking at individual objects, scientifically fantastic, scientifically very technologically advanced, but we're starting to step away from the night sky. And in fact, we do that even more so today. Beautiful images like this. These are from the Hubble Space Telescope. These images just mesmerize all of us. Whether you're a scientist or not a scientist, there's nothing you can say about these images but, wow, these are the greatest things you've ever seen, right? These are things out in outer space. But you get your connection with the night sky now on your device. You're connected to the night sky by looking at an image on a phone, looking at an image on a web page. So that is a real disconnection from being out looking at the night sky. Now, do we want to get rid of these images? Of course not, right? This is how science progresses. This is my job. This is what many of us will do for careers. We don't want to get rid of these. And in fact, amazingly today are even images like these, which I'll show you were just taken with the James Webb Space Telescope. These are pictures of planets that orbit other stars. I mean, this is the most fantastic decade to live in, and it will be even more fantastic next decade. But just keep in mind that we're seeing these images on our devices. We're not seeing these in space. So it's a challenge to see the night sky. It's more of a challenge today. The population of the world mostly lives in large cities. Large cities have lots of lights. Light pollution means you can hardly see the sky. You have to work at it. In some cases, it's invisible. But don't feel bad. The night sky is out there waiting for you. It's not gone away. You can go find it. The human connection with the night sky has undergone a large metamorphosis. But it hasn't been the sky that has changed. You see the same night sky as people have seen in all of humanity, more or less. It's the same night sky, the same stars, the same constellations, all that. The night sky fills me with wonder and awe, and it humbles me to see how small and think how small and insignificant we are in this part of the universe. But it also reminds me how important our planet Earth is, a planet that we should all strive to take care of because it's the only planet we have. So the next time you go outside at night, make an effort to look up, make an effort to see the night sky, and think about what's the connection for you with the night sky? What does it mean for you? Thank you.